Okay, I know it seems stressful. Once we get it worked out, it will help us out. All these hoops you got to jump through for the state.
Wait, it's like, I feel like this is how everyone is, even for the undergrad. Everyone freaks out.
That's very true.
What am I going to do?
Now, yeah. It is true. I think it's hard. It's hard once you get started in a new program, stuff you got to do. But we're going to help you along the way. We want to help you. We want you to be successful, and I want to help you be successful. All right. So let's continue talking about the. Let's move on. So we talked about history of special education. Just a tidbit of it. There's a lot more to cover, so I'm going to expect you to read the book and stuff, and it gives you the page numbers on it. Let's talk about the special education process now. There's a way that students are actually referred to special education. You can't just say, hey, this kid has special needs. There's a process. Okay?
Put them up for SIT.
That's exactly right.
After you get data.
That's right.
And data.
Just like Dr. Martin said. Now, I do want to tell you right now, before you get your license, I wouldn't say to anybody, and even it's probably a good practice, don't say, hey, I think your kid has ADHD, it needs to be evaluated. Because then you make yourself liable and the school liable for evaluation. Okay? However, you may be in that position someday when the teacher comes to you, since you're a special ed teacher, hey, this kid may have ADHD. You need to come evaluate him. Watch him. Pay attention to him. Then when you pay attention, collect some data. Then you go to mom and dad saying, here are these things I observed. This is probably the course of action we need to take. And this is what we get going here, all right? So we start with evaluation. So let's say year one.
To get to that, because I know like SIT, like, you know, you have to have the data,
Yes.
have interventions that you tried to put in place. Then SIT, like, they'll give you interventions, and it's like, tell them, you have to come up with every option. Will they even think about it that way?
That's exactly right. Now, this is the special ed process. What you're mainly thinking is about like response to intervention and how they are then referred to this level.
Yeah.
This is for a kid that everything has been tried on. And you've seen those kids, right? This kid can't read, he's just not reading at the grade level. You tried this, this, and this, all research-based strategies, and what happens, he gets evaluated, he gets referred to special education. Okay? So he's evaluated, he or she's evaluated. Notice it's the parents and the kid. They determine eligibility for special education. They set up an IEP meeting, or SIT, or the Student Intervention Team. Okay? They talk about in the IEP the services that are provided. These are like going hand in hand.
Which, are you saying SIT if they don't meet the eligibility?
Yeah. If they don't meet eligibility, they may kick them out and say, okay, let's have a SIT meeting. We'll see what accommodations we can provide for them. And we'll talk more about Section 504 and IDEA. So within, let's say they are then eligible for IDEA and eligible for special education. They get an IEP, they provide services, they monitor the services, they take an IEP review, and they look at that evaluation every 3 years. This review right here is to see if they're meeting their annual yearly, making adequate yearly progress. I'm sorry, I can't speak. Adequate yearly progress or AYP. Okay? This is what the kid gets referred to special education. Okay? We're going to talk about response to intervention later, week 5, I think. Response to intervention is the new way to identify students with special needs, but it's a way to keep students out of special education too. So I don't know if you guys have been involved with RTI or anything like that, but this RTI is before this takes place. Okay?
Which I know, like, there's, we'll probably learn about it, but like if you, the whole process, sometimes if a parent, like, says, I want the kid tested, they can skip over that step.
They could,
Like
but could the parent get a kid tested anytime they want? Yeah, they could. They could go to their own doctor and say, I can go to psychologist, doctor, psychometrician. They can go do that anytime they want. But to get the school to do that, it's going to take some steps.
Yeah.
And why is that?
School wants to exhaust every single intervention before they pay the money to do
Absolutely.
it. They
That's
want to
exactly
exhaust
right.
everything before they have to do it.
Yeah, they're trying to keep them out of special ed. They're going to have to pay for it if they say, well, this is not working, let's do this. Most of the time, school districts, they'll pony up the money anyway. You know, they want to help their kids. But it's sometimes when a parent says, hey, my kid has this, and they need to be tested. And you know that that kid doesn't have a behavioral disorder, they're just acting up in that class, because in the other classes they don't do that, right? So,
Or even some of the high schools I work with that were labeled behavior disorder, they had learning disabilities, had no way to articulate their
Yeah.
frustration level, had no coping skills, and the behavior skills popped up because of it.
and that's a
Behavior
good,
issues popped up because of it.
excellent segue. Misdiagnosis and disproportionality. All right, let's segue into that.
I get exactly.
Mhm.
I get
They
exactly.
didn't have the coping skills to go, hey, I'm frustrated, I don't understand this.
Well, last year, one of my kiddos, instead of dealing with or helping her, they put her first grade year, they put her in a fifth grade classroom or put her in a room by herself. The first grade is like the year that you're learning to read.
Mhm.
So she gets to second grade and she doesn't know how to do any of it. And you know, her way to cope was, she gets frustrated and
So they shouldn't be putting her by herself
Oh.
if it's not in the IEP.
they did. They did not do anything to help her be successful.
What
She came
race
to-
was this child?
What?
What race?
African American. She came to my class and she like would run out of the classroom, like
Yeah.
something my kids had never experienced before.
Here's the thing, and it's interesting to say that. And it leads to misdiagnosis, disproportionality, and to race involved with special education. Labeling students as disabled when they are not disabled creates some big issues. Disproportionality is the over-identification of students from a certain race, culture, or background more than another race, cultural background. That makes sense? So, African Americans are over-identified more than white Americans. Why? Are they dumber than whites?
They don't have some don't have that support from parents.
Go ahead. That's it. I
Or
mean,
like in JCK, like it's proved. Like if you've seen that movie, what was the movie? Won't Back Down. She stands up
Yes.
for them because they're poor.
That's right. A large percentage of students in special education come from low socioeconomic background. A large number of students in special education are black, African American. A large number are Hispanic. Are a large number Asian? Are they Asian? Refugees? But even that, and are we making stereotypes then, right? We're stereotyping. And I do. Okay, I ask my undergrads this all the time. Hey, if I got an Asian kid, an African American kid, and a Hispanic kid, which one's the smartest? They're like, oh, it's an Asian kid. I'm like, why do you say that? Seriously, that is a racist thing. Yeah. Then you have, let's say you have a white kid and an African American kid. Which one's the smartest? They're like, yeah, they all choose, and unfortunately, in America, we're mainly white. You know? They all choose a different race as being the dumber race, which we know for a fact it's not true. Why then are kids being misrepresented or mislabeled in special education at a higher rate than a different culture than whites? It's that support base, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
having that cultural background, the diversity.
Yeah.
You know, I had a kid from Nepal. I didn't know.
I know.
You know, he didn't like women, so I'm like, how am I support him? You know, they have a different culture, so that affects it hugely. Hispanic, like when you have
That's right.
the majority of kids that are Hispanic, they have a huge different. You know,
Boys or girls are more labeled in special ed?
boys.
Boys. Why? This-
people in their
There's
response.
Statistically,
They're more-
also, if you look at the people who teach, who are educators, I mean, most of them are women who are, yeah, this is kind of a slang that I like talk about, women who are good at school, and then you associate good at school with being successful. So if kids aren't good at school, they overlook their other positive traits and kind of label them as, well, you're not good at school, so you obviously have a problem.
Yeah.
Which I was one of those kids that wasn't good at school.
Yeah. It's the squeaky wheel against the no screech, right? The boys are acting up because they're knuckleheads. We know boys are knuckleheads. So they, hold on, that kid's got a behavioral disorder. He's got ADHD. Or he's got yeah, exactly.
He doesn't want to
Or
know.
he's sitting next to the wrong kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More often than not.
And-
He's sent by his best friend.
And that same kid's African American. And there's a term. It's the I think it's a 6-hour retarded child. You guys heard that term before?
No.
For 6 hours, a child can go through a school day being labeled mentally retarded, then go home and not be mentally retarded.
It's
So
all
this-
about learning how to work it.
Exactly. They spend all day in special ed being the retarded kid. Go home and they're playing Xbox and they're hanging out with the buddies and they're playing basketball. It's because they mislabel, diagnosis is wrong. There are a number of different factors associated with it, but mainly it's the support system. Unfortunately, people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, parents are working multiple jobs. Parents don't have time to read to their kids. I mean, you guys, if you read to your kids or if you've been
But they
read
don't
to as
have
a
that
child,
fatherly lead.
they'll follow the figure exactly like education is not placed on a pedestal like in whites.
It's
Culture.
survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest, absolutely.
Well, and people, regardless of what race they are, going to rise or sink to the level of their expectations.
That's right.
Everyone
So,
One
go
of the
ahead.
kids I had, he was in a 5-generational home.
Wow.
5 generations in one home. And he was the most English-speaking generation in that household. Mom spoke broken English. Grandma and grandpa? Maybe. Great-grandma and great-grandpa? Forget it. Ain't happening. 5 generations in one house.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of different cultures place different views on education higher, lower. If we say Asian, well, it's real high, right? We say African American, Hispanics, real low. And is that
Hispanics.
true?
At conferences, they don't ask, oh, how are they doing academically? How's their behavior?
That's
That's
right.
what they ask.
Do parents of African American and Hispanic children have hopes and dreams for their children?
Yes.
So why is it we treat them so different in special education? And I'm not having to answer that question now. It's just rhetorical. Let me see if I can get this big. Or smaller so I can actually read it. All right, and it's hard to see, but if you mislabel a kid, and this is from the National Alliance of Black Educators, I believe. Once students are receiving special ed services, they tend to remain in special ed classes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's what happens, right? Students are likely to encounter a limited, less rigorous curriculum if they're in special ed. Lower expectations can lead to diminished academic post-secondary opportunities. Students in special ed programs can have less access to academically able peers. Disabled students are often stigmatized socially, and disproportionality can contribute to significant racial separation.
So true about the socially.
Yes.
We had one girl in our school last year. I don't know what she was diagnosed with, but she was smaller. You know, she was identified with an IEP, and it took her a little bit more time to get up and down the stairs. Very tiny, but just had a lot of. She even had like occupational therapy. She went with. One of my kids said, "What's wrong with her?" I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with her." It just made me really sad.
And those kids face that daily. And these kids have been funneled into special ed year after year after year. And what happens is they stay in special ed, they're stigmatized, they get out. If a kid's in special ed, they typically are not going to get out and make $100,000 a year or go to college. So, disproportionality is very huge in special education, and our job as special educators is to try to keep that from happening.
A huge portion of it not happening. The stigmatization, the disproportionality.
Good question. That's a great question.
uh,
Starting with disproportionality, if you remove the disproportionality, it removes the stigma also from a lot of kids. Unfortunately, let's talk about labeling now. Okay? We're going to talk about the different categories in special education, different diagnoses later on. But labeling. What does labeling do to a student? It pigeonholes them. You're going to make me spell pigeon.
P-I.
G.
G-O.
Is that right?
I use, I don't know, P-I-G.
Yeah, GD.
I don't think there's a
Yeah, GEON.
Yeah, that's pigeon. P-I-G-E-O-N.
That's right. You'll find out now when I grade as well. Pigeonhole each student.
That's okay. My son and my significant other treat me as the spell check.
Well, that's good. I need people to spell check me. So, labeling a student pigeonholes a student, and explain that.
When pigeonhole a student, like, I had to deal with this with stepson. They wanted to label him as ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder, and I fought against it because once he's labeled like that, that's the first thing any teacher's going to see, any administrator's going to see, anybody's going to see, and they're going to go, oh, he's got that. You know, they're not expecting any higher when they're not expecting anything better of him other than what he's labeled as. And he is much more than that.
So we all know teachers grab those forms and what's the diagnosis here? Oh, he's got ADHD, he's ODD, well, great. That's what they're thinking. So it's stereotyping the kid automatically. What else does labeling do for a kid? Or to a kid?
Gives him a cop out.
So, okay.
They don't have high standards.
Yeah, they don't have high standards for themselves.
Lower standards, or even like those who are identified as gifted.
Yes?
It's almost like they don't have to try. You know, why?
They're not challenged.
Yeah.
And we got social, right?
Being labeled as that kid.
Yep. So,
Being labeled as that kid.
and by the way, my kid is that kid in here. He's the only male in class other than me. I mean, and welcome to my world. When I would be in class at KU, I'd be in a class of 15, 20 students, and I'd be the only guy in there. So, I understand. Also emotional. What's a kid do to a kid's psyche when you label him? Oh,
Depression, anxiety.
absolutely. All the different things that go along with being that kid, right?
Yeah, they had like I remember back when they had one of the kids sit in on a SIP meeting and like we're presenting the data to the parents and who should call and you know because you tried.
Yeah.
Just you know that really just impacted it.
Absolutely. The kids see, here's that. By the way, you guys are teachers. You're all licensed in something. You guys are the experts. Seriously. When a parent comes, sits down across from you, they automatically feel dumb. So you have kids. You have kids? You have kids? I
No,
sure hope not.
they asked me today if I did. Look, second grade. You have kids? No.
When you have kids, you know it feels to sit across from a teacher and for them to say, okay, your child is not doing this, they're not doing this, they're not doing this. It makes me feel, that makes me shrink down in the chair. Because, yeah, absolutely.
It's
And
more aggressive.
that's right.
That's why you gotta do the sandwich.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
not so good.
You
Yeah.
gotta do that sandwich.
You gotta do the
Even for
sandwich.
those kids that you're like, oh, I can't do it.
Yes.
Awesome.
There's a number of different strategies we have to approach. However, we have to remember that we are the professionals, we are the experts, and when those parents sit down across from us, the majority of them have a high school diploma at the most. And they expect you when you're the gospel. And whatever you say goes. And a lot of times parents don't understand that they can say, no, I don't want that. So when you guys are becoming advocates of special education, you will see that when you sit down in these IEP or SIT team meetings and the math teacher is a turd, and you're like, they don't want to help that kid. You're like, hold on. The law says you must do this. And you point it out to them. Right? So you guys become the advocates for those students. There's bad things that happen when you label a kid. You know that. But there's also good things. What are some good things?
You can meet their needs,
Good.
differentiation.
You can strategize. If they're an audio, visual, tactile, and they need to see, watch, and write notes to get the most material possible into them, you have the ability to help them out and give them the best possible education.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I was going to say something. Strategize.
Is that what? Are you forgetting the R there?
I think so.
I think
so,
you kind of lied. Yeah. How about you just rewrite it?
Oh, shut it. All right.
Don't you love our relationship?
Yes, we know this. G-I-E-S. Best. Well, I can't remember what's going to write.
Okay, what word is?
You were talking about meeting their different
Oh, their
learning
styles.
styles.
Best environment possible with
Thank
the
you.
least amount of restriction. Least restrictive environment.
There it is.
There's the
You're way ahead of me now.
I'm sorry.
That's good. We'll get to that next week, but that's okay. Best environment.
What word is that?
Environment.
Here.
What is the? And I'm going to ask you this. You probably don't know. What's the number one reason a child must be labeled in special
I don't know.
Why they're special? Or why they're labeled?
Yeah.
Or like this certain.
Behavioral?
How about money? I was gonna say you get money
because
from
the
the
schools
government.
get more money for the kids that are
Just like
inside.
ESL, if they're labeled ESL,
You get so much
you get
more.
more money. If you're a teacher that is endorsed at ESL, you get more
So-
money that way. It's all about the moolah.
education? Absolutely. Follow the dollar. I've heard that a long time. In education, follow the dollar. A child must have a label to get services under IDEA. All right. This is all this. And we'll talk about IDEA next week, but for the law to take place, they must have some label. And ADHD doesn't fall into it.
Huh.
We'll talk about that. But there must be a label there. So you guys are looking at 3 different labels for your papers for Dr. Martin, right?
Yeah.
Those 3 labels fall under it.
They do, like bipolar and all that does
Mental
fall.
illness as
That's
well.
correct.
So does anxiety.
That's correct. But the good thing is, kids can get labeled and get services. Without that label, the evaluation, the diagnosis, they can't get services.
They just get
That's right.
the strategies from the teacher, which aren't always effective.
We will talk about Section 504 next week, the American Disabilities Act, and I'm sure you heard Section 504 come around and say about that. So we're moving then to, okay, we have labels. Now let's move into delivery models for disabilities. These are all kind of background stuff as we move on. Delivery models for special education. Question? It tells you some information, but it gives you some examples of classes, how special education can be delivered. Small group classes.
Yeah, that's what I started on. They had like 5 kids.
Yeah, so they have small groups. However, it takes more teachers.
Yeah.
This is just an example of autism. There could be a kid with intellectual disability that has a special class too, right? An individual class. Collaborative teaching was a model. So a special ed teacher collaborates with 2 teachers during the same class period or more. So this is going to happen with you. You're going to be a resource teacher, you're sitting in a resource room, and you have 35 kids on your caseload. And each of the 35 kids has an IEP that's this thick. Okay? That is a lot. It typically is there's a certain percentage that each teacher should have in the school by law. I can't remember. Man, you think I would know that too?
Yeah, come on.
Oh, jeez, I'm not giving you money for Let's say 20%. So if you don't have 20% of the kids. Each teacher, you're going to be, or in your building has kids with special needs, they're going to be funneled to you. You may have multiple teachers in your building that have special ed background. So they're going to be funneled to you. You will be meeting the needs of those kids with those IEPs, all right? What they're going to do then is require of you to go down to the class and work with that teacher to help teach those kids. And you're going to be walking back down to your room and those kids coming out of the classes to sit down in your room to work on reading, writing, math, science, social skills, all these different things. Okay? So there's a number of different things that you're going to be doing. And I remember you saying a while ago, it's us versus them, but also it's special education. It's a little more directed. You don't have 30 kids in there. That's the reason I like special ed.
It's not so.
Yeah,
It's still kind of chaotic,
but
not so.
things move,
It's
and I
such
like
chaos
that.
and controlled chaos that when you got
Yeah.
all your mix going right, it's complicated.
However, I have got ADHD type 1 or 2.
Like you're actually know that.
Yeah, I self-diagnosed myself.
I thought like, oh, you went and got diagnosed. So.
I think, for me, kids moving out of the classroom, hey, I get to see that new face in 35 minutes. I get to see a new set of kids. I love that. As opposed to I'm going to be at a block schedule with these kids. You do block schedule as well? For an hour and a half. I just want to jump out the window. So I mean,
That was neat.
Or be like
Yeah.
a specials teacher where you don't have to have
Yeah.
it for someone else.
so what, am I going to move? Oh, it's working. It's good. I didn't think it was going to work. All right, so our small group classes. Mainly small group classes are dealing with functional skills, and we're going to, remember I said functional and adaptive special education is over, and hopefully you're going to learn about that between now and next week, but next week we'll talk more about it. Collaboration, you as a special ed teacher are going to collaborate with other teachers down the hall, you're going to have the IEPs in front of you, you're going to collaborate what they should teach, how they should teach it, what assignments, what accommodations, what modifications. We'll talk about, let's just throw this out. Terms that you use interchangeably all the time. I want to modify a lesson for a kid, which in reality it doesn't mean an accommodation for a kid. An accommodation and modification, 2 separate things. Okay? An accommodation is change in process, product, or content. That make sense? You guys remember hearing that?
Yeah.
So I'm changing how I deliver the content. I'm changing how I assess. I'm changing how I allow them to report back what is product, process, content. Modification is a change in curriculum. Okay? So if I know in the state standards saying in reading the students in 11th grade should be able to read at this level of these words, well, a kid with an intellectual disability may not get to that point. So I've got to modify the curriculum for that student.
Yeah, because you don't want them reading 11th grade.
No.
They're reading at like 8th grade.
Exactly. You don't want them to fail. However, you have to expose them to the 11th grade level reading.
Push them to the highest level. So you need to catch it, but you don't
Exactly.
want to overexpose them so they don't freak out.
An oversimplified version would be, say, in history. Okay, if you're in 10th grade, you have to know the 5 causes of World War II. That's the curriculum. Kid with an intellectual disability, I can modify it saying, this child needs to learn the 3 colors of each flag that represent World War II states, the countries, that makes sense? It's associated with curriculum, and the level is low enough for that kid. However, we have to remember we can't dumb down the curriculum. We need to meet them at their level. Okay. So, consultative. Students with disabilities receive their instruction with accommodations or modifications, nothing to say, as required by the IEP from the gen ed teacher. Okay, let's throw this out here. You guys heard the terms gen ed and special ed so far, right? You guys understand what that means? Right now, you're general education teachers. When you get your license, you become special education teachers. Okay?
Can consultant also go under speech language pathologists or occupational therapists?
It's
It
usually
could.
speech, don't they see more than once a month?
It could, however, we're looking mainly for licensed teachers in the public school system, and these licensed teachers would be special ed teachers would be consultative. They could consult on a number of different areas of disability.
Is that kind of like sorry,
That's all right. Go ahead.
like the autism specialists that come in and consult when you have a kid and they help you strategize?
Okay, I'll take that back. It could be that person, the autism specialist, may not even be certified, but they're an expert in autism. So that they could be consultative. That's true. But for our purpose, we're thinking, okay, you guys will be licensed and you can consult. Co-teaching. This is a model that's real big right now, and big with the United States government, federal education department. So, co-teaching, just that. You're sharing the curriculum, you're sharing the presentation, you're sharing assessment. You are the teachers in the class. So, and I had that with class within a class. I'd be teaching, and the special ed teacher would be there helping me. Luckily, they had some background in science, so they helped me teach this. I'd teach this, and we'd switch back and forth.
It'd almost be like saying it's in math.
Yeah.
Kind of like splitting up, like taking half.
That's right. Kind of like when you student talk. When all you student talk, you split the classroom up. You're teaching that. The other teacher's teaching that. You can split it up.
And like you try and like they know how these certain kids learn this way and tweak it.
And you flip flop. So when you get done with your group, you flip them. And each group is getting instruction from both of them.
Yeah.
So you're not just once teaching one group, because you're flipping. And the best thing about this, you're planning and you're collaborating here. Okay, of course, deaf, hard of hearing, we won't deal with per se. These are specialized students. And luckily, Olathe has probably one of the best schools in the nation for Kansas School for Deaf. EDB small groups. So you heard Dr. Martin say EDBD, right? I said that one time. Somebody thought, "Are you saying itty bitty?" Yeah, itty bitty. No, it's EDBD, or emotional behavioral disturbance, or emotional behavioral disorder. How you want to say it? This is what we got. You got a classroom full of kids, not full. You have a classroom with kids that have behavior so severe that they cannot be in the classroom. Okay? Yeah, and you're going to see it, and you've seen those kids.
Yep.
And let me throw this out to you also. Inclusion. Is it the law?
Should it be the law or
Or is it the law? So we've heard inclusion and mainstreaming and all that stuff. So if you're a BD kid and you're beating crap out of people every day, the law says you got to be in my classroom. Unfortunately, it doesn't say that. And we'll get to that. So inclusion is never ever mentioned in IDEA. The word never is said in the law ever. So inclusion is put in there by teachers and parents, and because we want them included for social skills, academic skills, a lot of different development. We want you there. Absolutely. So if Mike is beating the crap out of me, we don't want him in there every day. But what if one day he says, I can do it. He goes in there, goes 5 days without beating somebody up. We pull him out, put him back in for another 10 days. He's acclimating, right? Just like with Jess, and she's got black eyes every day, right? So we need to make sure that we put him in the least restricted environment. But it also applies to you guys. You guys are in the least restricted environment too, right? So a little question here is, who does IDEA cover? that law. Yeah.
Not a single.
Yeah. Well, in anything in education, who does it cover? There you go. I like it. Everyone. It's not just special ed. So any of the key points we'll talk about later with IDEA, it covers everybody in your classroom. It's not just special education. Okay? Just keep that in mind.
So it's almost like IDEA, and like almost like a branch, sort of.
Good, yeah.
Treating it
Yeah.
Like, you know, here's the government, the Congress, and like IDEA.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
IDEA up here, and it does branch off, or an umbrella. It
Yeah.
covers everybody, but it's specifically made for special ed people, so they're not discriminated against.
Yeah.
You know? Itinerant teacher. Have you guys been itinerant teachers before? You have to move classrooms.
Felt
You
very
have a car.
sorry for some of
Wait.
Yes.
uh,
Some teachers have to go. Music teachers do this all the time. You go to a different building 14 times a day. Itinerant special ed teacher does the same thing. You're going to different classrooms throughout the day. So if you're all 4 on my caseload, I got 4 different classes I'm going throughout the day. And I may go multiple times because I may just at reading and math. I may go. What about your name? Rachel. Hold on, just a second. Kristen. Rachel, Kristen. Sorry, I'm learning.
them. Chris works better.
It's okay.
Chris
I'll answer that.
and Rachel had problems with science.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This whole day, I'm like walking by a kid. What's
Oh,
your
my
name?
word. I don't know about you, I'm terrible with names. Terrible.
You would be a terrible stuff.
I know.
Names change like every
I
day.
know. I would have.
Thinks about your-
I have students all semester long, and by the end of the semester, I don't know who they are. It's terrible. Anyway, I maybe go to four different classrooms throughout the day, or multiple times. That's an itinerant teacher.
That was last year our special ed teacher. Like our schedules had to change so many times because she had to like fit my kids and the other second grade kids. So they were at the same time
Yeah.
for reading and just our schedule.
It was probably a logistics nightmare to do
It
something
was
like that.
it was a nightmare. Every semester.
Okay.
Switching things around.
Look at me, I'm using technology. Look at that. Occupational therapist and physical therapist following that. Music therapist. You guys ever work with a music therapist?
Love the music therapists.
I was in class at KU with a music therapist, and I loved her. She was awesome. And then I saw her at work one day because I went to observe one of my practicum students. She was at Ravenwood Elementary. I walked in, I saw her, what are you doing? And she said, I'm working with some students. So I went and watched, and I thought to myself, if I were musically talented, that was what I'd be doing.
Wait, so what exactly does
She's a special ed teacher, but uses music to teach these kids.
Yeah. We use
Like-
music to teach whatever their IEP is. If they
Yeah.
struggle with fine motion, we use music to do fine motion.
And you can do clapping, and rhythm, and all these
Well,
stuff.
like one of my favorite
Singing
teachers is
words.
I was on it like this, and if a kid is having trouble feeding himself, you do the instrument that goes like this, and they will feed themselves.
The clutter.
But you can do any level.
Yeah,
It's fun.
absolutely. And music therapy is phenomenal. And,
Sometimes it's the best carrot for the kids.
and it's,
You want that positive reinforcement, that music therapist can be it.
and you're typically having a music therapist that's going to be in a functional classroom. Lower level kids, not higher functioning kids. Okay? Because typically the higher functioning kids will go to the music teacher. Low incidence classes, mild, moderate, severe. I'm gonna use technology. That's good. All right, so let's throw out some more terms here. Low incidence disabilities, high incidence disabilities, adaptive, functional, okay? Severe, profound, mild to moderate.
How would the difference between what people consider severe and what people consider profound?
That's a great question. There's a thin line in there. Severe, profound deals with their intellectual functioning and their life adaptive functioning at times. Can they toilet themselves? Can they feed themselves? And, we'll come back to that. Let's do this one before I get, okay. High incidence. I know. I do all this. So these things, there's all these acronyms that you'll learn. LRE. Okay, there's a million. So low incidence disabilities. Low incidence means they occur less. High incidence, they occur more. So that's why you guys are working on your adaptive special education degree. They occur more than low incidence disabilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you guys are going into adaptive special education, which are high incidence disabilities. All right? Severe, profound, meaning a lot less kids have those disabilities, so they're low incidence. So mild to moderate disabilities are high incidence disabilities. Does that make sense?
So like, when I went to the classroom, there were 6 kids from the school that autism, that be high.
Probably low.
Low.
The disability category.
Yeah.
Low. That's correct. High percentage of low incidence disabilities. Does that make sense?
When I was taking classes to get a teaching degree, I'd only seen pictures about something called Cat syndrome. It's a particular disability that happens.
Is it a genetic disorder?
It's a genetic disorder. I went into work at a school and there's not only one, but there's 2.
Yeah, what are the chances?
And they're brothers.
Oh, that's higher chances.
They're brothers.
Okay.
And I'm kind of going, and I'm reading about it, I've only seen pictures of this and I was like, look, you don't see that often.
Definitely low incidence disability. And I don't know their functioning and cognitive functioning because it could have been.
It varies.
Severe can get by with help. Profound, 24/7 help. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Severe can get by with help, 24/7 help. Moderate, mild, they just need support. Low incidence are feeding these over here. It's like I'm not trying to give it away. Next week I'm talking more about that. Anyway, orthopedic impaired. Students are orthopedically impaired, of course. Gotta have physical therapy. Motor skills, communication skills. Small group, self-contained. This is where you get into. This is where we hear before. It's a self-contained class. Kids are pulled out of the classroom and they stay in there all day long. Typically, it's if it's a kid that has an emotional behavioral disorder, self-contained classroom. If they cannot be in the regular classroom. If a kid has autism with those behaviors, they can't be in the classroom. Self-contained classroom. If a kid is severe to profound intellectual cognitive functioning disability, they could be in a self-contained classroom. Why would a kid be in a self-contained classroom?
Fear of hurting others.
That's part of it, yeah.
That's the reason for
Maybe the only environment they can
That's good.
Maybe the only environment they can handle.
So that's good. So at least there's an environment that's the only environment they can handle. That's good. And the only environment that allows the people around them to learn too.
Yeah. So they could be successful.
They can be successful. There's a continuum of services, right? So this would be self-contained classroom. This would be gen ed. So severity climbs as you get closer to the self-contained classroom. And then this would be so high incidence disabilities increases as you go closer to here. Does that make sense? So low incidence disabilities increases as you go closer to here. That makes sense? So if we have mild to moderate, more down here, severe to profound, more up here. And all on this continuum where you want to have them at, right? So if you have gen ed here, self-contained, this is pull out, push in. This is half and half. Half in the classroom, half in special ed. However you want to do it. But this is 100% gen ed right here. That makes sense to you guys?
Yeah.
So you should be seeing that in your classrooms. When you go to your buildings or when you're in, you'll be like, oh, okay, they're in the gen ed classroom all the time. They have an IEP. So they are a low incidence disability. And you'll be thinking, I wonder what low incidence disabilities are. Or excuse me, they're high incidence disabilities. If they are out of the classroom all the time, it's low incidence. And you'll be thinking to yourself this week, I wonder what those are. But you can read and find out. But we'll talk about it. Preschool, special needs preschools, of course. We'll talk about the law later, but when can you identify a kid with a special need?
I was telling you, like these kindergartners came in preschool,
Yes, that's very true.
so obviously I knew when they were preschool.
Could it be before preschool?
Maybe. Well, you wouldn't think so because they aren't. They're not fully. What is the word? Like, what? Developed. Like in maturity.
Yeah, that's true.
They're getting more strict about when you can enter kindergarten because they're not maturity, they aren't ready.
Psychologists are moving away from that.
Good.
In Shoni mentioned we've got an early childhood center where if your child has a demonstrated need, whether you go through KU or they've got an early diagnosis from age 3, you can get started on that stuff 2-3 years of age, and that starts with motor skills and works up to social
right.
stuff.
So can you diagnose a child at birth?
Depending upon the disability, yes.
Like if they're born with Down syndrome.
There you go. So you got Down syndrome kid, you automatically see that kid as Downs. The percentage, and we'll talk about Downs later, but the percentage of kids with Down syndrome with mental retardation are very high, like 80-90%. So if you know that's going to take place, you know that kid's going to need services from birth to what, and we didn't figure this out, we'll talk about it again, but how long can they get services?
Well, the one that my mom is out in that station, he still gets services. Like, well, it depends. If he gets government services,
How are they going to get service through the public school system?
23.
21.
Summer after their 21st birthday.
Yeah, so they can go 21, or they can graduate out. So if they're high enough functioning and they are 19, they can graduate out. We used to have some kids down here in the Access program, our transition program, that were 21. So they can stay from birth all the way to 21, according to IDEA. Okay. Visually impaired classrooms, totally different from any classroom you'll be involved in. However, let's talk about cognitive ability. Let's go through and think about it. Cognitive ability of visually impaired, high or low?
High.
Depends, right? I mean, it's a for the most part, let's say if we have somebody with visual impairment, we're not assuming they have a cognitive disability, right? Let's say high. They're typically developed. What's another term I just threw out there? Have you ever heard that before?
Say that again?
Typically developed. So I'm saying, well, Mike, you're just not normal. And Jess, you're normal. Well, you're typically developing, and you're not typically developing. Why is it we don't use the term normal?
Because what is
what is
normal?
Thank you.
Anymore.
Look at me. Do I look normal to you right now? No. None of us are normal. So I can't say to you, well, that's not normal. Well, to him it's normal. So we don't use that term normal anymore. So if I'm saying, if I got kids in my classroom, they're typically developing, they're not typically developing. Pretty
based
simple.
on like data?
Based on data. Yeah, absolutely. I can watch, if I have a kid that's a senior in high school and it's a boy and he cries all the time,
Obviously, it's not.
that's not typically developing. However, if I have a boy in kindergarten and he cries all the time, that's typically developing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can be typically developing here. Special needs preschool, depends. Small group, self-contained classroom. Depends.
What?
A lot of times, going to be either BD, which could be. We know BD is not typically developing, but how are behavioral disordered kids? Are they higher cognitive? Pretty much. They're smart.
They know when to
And a lot of times the behavioral stuff is because of sometimes
That's true. They're bored, or sometimes behavioral stuff is because they're so low cognitively they're trying to make up for it. You know,
Yeah.
this depends, right? Orthopedic impairment has nothing to do with their cognitive ability. Of course, this is all cognitive ability here. Okay. These are teachers here. Of course, cognitive ability goes along with EDD. Okay. Deaf, hard of hearing? No, not at all. With deaf, hard of hearing, and physical impairments, does your you notice when people try to equate them and put them in different labels as having a disability? My point of this is, I got a kid with cerebral palsy. Is cerebral palsy a physical condition? Genetic, yes. It's no cognitive disability at all. And this person with cerebral palsy, some can have a huge IQ. But a lot of these people with cerebral palsy in the past were put in homes. Can you imagine? You'd be locked inside this body and you can't say anything. You're like, what am I doing here?
And then you probably didn't like it in public. Not be typically developing.
Not
because you don't
typically
have that
developed.
social skills.
That's exactly, that's a good point. Let's bring that up. Can a kid in special education with a disability have another disability occur if they are not nurtured and taught? And yeah, absolutely.
Going back to my
Absolutely.
girl, not being
That's right.
nurtured and taught, being thrown into a room by herself or with fifth graders when she was a first grader.
Going back to the idea of 1700s guitar, he raised a wild boy. That kid probably could develop typically, but where he grew up, I don't know. Okay, so delivery models, special education. We talked a little bit about pull-in, push-out models. Hybrid models where they're sometimes in the class, sometimes out of class. Okay. Let's look at the law real quick about the delivery model of special education services. Now, this is the citation from the law itself. For the services to take place, the child must be labeled first, right? Beautiful, that's right. Labeled first, and this must happen, right? Once they get an IEP, projected date for the beginning of services and modifications described in paragraph of that section. Frequency, location, duration. Services, modifications. Does that make sense? Okay. This is where the details are specific about service the child with disability receive, when, where, how often. How often? Oh, man. Oh,
just put the marker down at the side.
curses. Thank you.
I do that all the time.
There. Okay. How often the child will receive services? Number of times per day, per week. So give me an example of services a child. 2 times of what?
2 times a day. Every day.
For?
For reading and math.
Very good. Let's say reading. Let's make it specific.
And each session will be 30 minutes.
Good. How long? 30 minutes.
30
Good.
minutes. And it will occur in special resources.
So resource.
The services will start August 12th and May 24th.
Good. It's simple,
Just a lot of paperwork.
but you got to do it 30 times when you got 30 kids on your caseload, right? And this is just one thing for reading. What if they have other issues?
Yeah, it's another paperwork.
Yes. So this is developed by the OSEP Office of Special Education Programs, federal government. Okay. Okay. So that's the law. I think that'll go away if I remove that. If I close that.
Now
Just
you gotta
erase it.
erase it.
You got that for me?
Why is it not working?
There we go. Oh, look at you.
I have to.
That's extra points right there. Did I? What was this one here just did?
No, that was that one.
Oh, it's the same one. So these two things are the same. Okay. All right. So now, okay, we talked about delivery service models. We talked about a ton of stuff. I'm just throwing at you. I mean, we got 8 weeks. I got to throw a bunch of credits. Let's talk now. We talked about inclusions, and let's talk about. And we know it's not the law, but let's talk about the types of inclusion. Okay. You good with that?
Yeah. This doesn't really give much detail.
It does not. And I want to
It
let you.
just gives us.
You're going to be putting in your mind what these things are. All right. So I want you to think now. It's like head down, thumbs up. You remember that game?
Yeah.
Mhm.
7.
You're going to be thinking now. I want you to think in your mind. How do you put this in your words? These inclusion models: pull in, push out, hybrid, self-contained, pair system. We talked about some of these already, right? In your own words, come up with that. You don't need to write anything down. Take about 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and just think. And don't fall asleep, Kristen.
That's hard
Yeah.
to, maybe a week I will be.
You have to write all these papers.
I know.
I'm thinking of when my kid starts going through the student not working with, when he starts going through his IEP process. That's not interesting.
Okay. When you're done thinking, Jess, I'm so dumb. Jess, pull out, Rachel, push in, Kristen, hybrid, self-contained, Michael.
And then Vera.
I'll do pair system. And then, you go one at a time. So Jen, Jess, you're going to go right on the board. Choose whatever color you want. Go right on
On that board or on this
the
board?
board. On that board right there.
Which board?
This one right here.
The smart board.
So you can pick this up and you're going to write right.
That didn't have the right short words there. Put your hand on there.
You tell she's obsessed with compulsive. Yeah. Now, is that a high or low instances of things?
Depending. The word. Can I use the word in the word?
Yeah, okay. Good.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised you used the term services, and that's good. Some people don't pick up on that.
Oh.
That's fine. Click on. I think there you go. There you go.
I just erased it.
That's all right. We got the gist of it.
Okay.
And because I was going to have you erase it, or somebody else erase it, and go.
Okay.
All right, Rachel. She's not afraid to use the black.
I like
Color.
color.
Absolutely.
I like color. As you can tell.
Weird.
You know.
Never used one of these.
That's all right. You can't put your hand
Yeah,
on it.
it's so hard because when you write on a marker board,
Yeah,
you're
you
used to being
use the
able to
marker.
rest
you
your
get-
palm.
Yeah, and you get feedback from writing with a marker. This one you get really good feedback. Isn't it cool though? Cool thing to use?
That was the hardest thing.
Pixelated is what it
It is.
is.
When you're back here, it's not. It's good from back here.
Really? Try using airliner. Oh my
Oh,
word.
I don't know.
Kids. are like trying to get, I'm like, guys, I know how to use an air.
Do not, you're gonna use one.
What?
Good. Can you tell us an example?
When they're pushed in.
Let's use music. And,
I was gonna say.
Okay, you should
I was
use
gonna
it.
say music.
Yeah.
Well, specifically, well, and actually, even more with Christian. I'm trying to think. Well, a lot of times in music and the special classes, art and physical education, they push the kids in for not only social stuff, but for just general instruction. Because, like you were saying earlier, music is generally a reward. Physical education is really a reward for students doing during their other time of instruction.
Okay. So you guys agree with that? You good?
Yes.
Please, that's good.
Thumbs up.
But you can erase it.
No, she can't. She'll erase it. We'll make her work now.
I've eaten 2 apples. I'm still eating. They go for very up to Gracias, Senora. Wow, she got a long definition.
She should follow that. I'm not saying-
Because I've been in the middle of it.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm like, are you trying to say we haven't gone back?
No, I'm just kidding.
We've got long and hard about our definition.
No, I wasn't apologizing for my handwriting.
This is
I'm
horrible.
This is everybody. It's hard to write.
It's hard to write.
Like,
Well, I was pretty sure I was writing straight, and then I stepped back and I was like, this is
Students are usually educated alongside regular ed. You have more staff or more support. Whether you have extra paras or you've got another teacher, your 4 hands in there.
That's good. Is so is it totally opposite of self-contained?
Not necessarily.
It's kind of like self-contained.
It's kind of like self-contained, but it's almost like in reverse.
Yeah. Okay.
In my mind, it's almost like we're self-contained. They're in their own little classroom, their own little area. Hybrid for me is you take those kids that would normally be in self-contained classrooms, and not around regular ed kids or around regular ed kids as little as possible during the day, and you're pulling them into a regular ed classroom for positive peer modeling and good social interaction, appropriate behavior within a classroom, that sort of stuff.
It's kind of like pull out, push in, push out.
Kind of, we did something like that, kind of a hybrid sort of situation where we didn't, my lab teacher, he didn't pull just as strictly, we would create a database, groups of a similar ability level. You take, honestly, just half the class, I don't think half the class would teach the same lesson.
Yeah.
Just in different classrooms, but it was like that, it was kind of a push in and kind of a,
And that's another example of presentation.
It's also really good for both with regular ed. Regular ed, it shows that the SPED kids or disabilities function just like they do, and it also gets the regular ed kids going, hey, I'm doing the same stuff that the other kids are doing,
absolutely.
right? So you don't have that stigmatization.
I'm saying they're not raising their eyebrows, they happen to these kids, they're splitting up,
Yeah.
and actually a mixture. You have another class size down to 24 to 12, like that.
Absolutely. All right, your turn, Michael.
Alright.
Make this good.
I know, but still.
It's all right,
I need to
we'll
find a different
we'll
one.
exit out.
And to me,
There you
this
go.
is
Totally random, but we do have class next Tuesday, even though Labor Day is on Monday, right?
That's correct.
I don't have it, if I come in sometimes,
Don't worry too much.
Also, don't forget, Thanksgiving week, we will have class. Your class will be
Hold on.
Thanksgiving week, we have Tuesday.
Wait, Thanksgiving week is 26. So we do have class on the
Yeah,
26th.
now, it doesn't mean that the professor can't give you online stuff to do that day. It just means that you will have class at their lunchtime.
But to what?
Like if they say, okay, we're not going to meet in class on that day, but we're going to be online assignments to do,
Oh,
we may do that, but I'm not sure yet.
you don't know if you want to show up or not.
Yeah, well, I'm not teaching that class.
Oh, no. Wow. See, this is only 8 weeks. This is.
And so if we know now that we're gonna be out of town that week,
Yeah, we'll talk to the professor.
because I was like, I know now, so I was like, let them know.
Because the professor may say, I'm going to be gone too, so I'm going to make some online stuff. So
Okay.
we'll talk to him.
Do we have you for any other classes?
Yeah, you have me for 2 more.
Okay, good.
yeah, this is a very often word question. Does anybody here have any dietary restrictions?
No,
I do.
my dietary
What?
restriction is I like
Carb and sodium. I had a heart attack with sodium.
Yeah.
So you're a low carb.
Low carb, low sodium. Low fat.
Eat
Are
healthier.
you making something?
Well, that's, we were just talking.
We were just talking about it.
We could do like a treats
We
every
could do that.
It came from when I was at St. Mary's. My birthday was on a class night, and I made treats.
Well, she said her birthday.
My birthday.
Glad I said we can have cake.
You make us.
And
You
your birthday
make,
every day? Huh?
you make us unhealthy. You make him. Bring him an apple.
I just have to do it.
Bring him an apple or something.
Alright. Students do instruction and resource rooms per IEP, usually in small groups per SPED teacher. That's true.
I mean, it's probably a lot more good time, but it's not, we don't do a lot of self-contained, except for maybe like PE kids.
Yeah, they're trying to move away from the
We
self-contained.
have one, it's a group of like four or five students that, you know, sped teachers, but we don't do a lot, you know, I try to do
Yeah, my kid, when I worked in the self-contained classroom, my kids were out of that classroom, out of that wing for lunch and adaptive PE. They weren't in regular PE, but we had an adaptive PE person. But that was our music therapist.
There's definitely cons for self-contained. There's some pros. It keeps you as a teacher sane, as a gen ed teacher. But can you imagine being in a self-contained classroom as a special ed teacher all day long?
No.
By the way, special ed teachers have one of the highest turnover rates.
Really? Well, because of all the paperwork.
Paperwork, stress, injury.
Yeah, I think I was talking to someone at. Where was I? I was at Mahaffey, and I was talking to her, and she said she's gone through like 8 different people since she's
Yes.
been there.
When I was at St. Mary's, I was still working in a self-contained classroom in a self-contained wing. I had to tell my professors every semester, if I come in with bite marks, scratches, scrapes, bruises, one semester I came in with my arm in a brace, and another semester I came in with a black eye. It's not my boyfriend, it's my job.
Definitely hazards of the job.
Yeah.
I would say those adaptive special ed teachers probably not. They're usually going to hire an ED/BD teacher to do something like that. So para attends class, goes to the resource room. Goes to lunch if needed. So this para goes with them if they need it. That para is written into the IEP also. Well, oftentimes you'll see a para. You guys ever been pairs before? So how many times did you get pulled off one kid to help another kid? And you help that one kid, and then you're like, okay, we need you to do these 3 kids, and you're supposed to only help this one kid.
Yeah. I was supposed to work with one kid who was supposed to be ESL or ELL, and I ended up with a group of 5 of them.
Yeah.
They took
One,
advantage.
my one kid that I was supposed to work with was, right there, but I had 4 other ones that
They take advantage of
language
others.
isn't
Shoot, you're
They do.
giving him assistance. You're in the same room as this kid. I'll just do that.
That's right.
yeah.
So let me throw this out, a little tad bit of information. We all know that we cannot live without parents. So we need to make the decision now. Since you guys are becoming special ed teachers, you're going to be in charge of parents. So you guys need to make a decision now. You make treats for your parents. You treat them well. You love on them, and you tell them how much you care for them, because you know how it feels to be treated poorly. You know how they make squat. They make nothing. But they're the ones that first there to be picking up that kid with autism and making sure they're not kicking and biting and screaming. And,
Or cleaning them up if they
Yeah,
want
there's
to.
poop and there's,
You name it, it's happened.
So let's just make a pact now, is that we treat our parents. We treat our parents with utmost respect. Man, it's like on-the-job training should get you some type of degree. You know? Okay. Para does a number of things with those. Okay. All right. Let's look at. We're going to look at inclusive practices here real quick, and then we will look at a couple other things before we're done. What research says about inclusion benefiting all students? Okay, now this is a big deal in graduate school, by the way, is research. They're trying to make it a big deal in undergrad, but you guys are so freaking busy. You know? But now you're reading and writing. We're giving a final exam in here, but it's going to be in class, and it's not going to be. It's going to be like multiple choice, but graduate school is reading and writing. Okay, so reading and writing about research and what's going on in your field, and that's how you stay up on things. And that's like when you join Council of Exceptional Children, you'll stay up on practices. I don't expect you to do a ton of it while you're grad school, but you're getting to that point. Strategy and inclusive classrooms have been shown to benefit all learners. It's like a duh, right? But this is research back to show it. And that's from 1984. It's a long time ago, right? Students with intellectual disabilities educated in general ed classroom settings have been found to score higher on literacy measures than students in segregated settings. We can use another word here. That would be, what kind of setting is that? Inclusion example. Yeah, self-contained. Very good. Look at you. In self-contained classroom. That's just another word. That's from 2000, about 13 years ago. Right? 2004 IDEA states education of children with disabilities can be made more effective by having high expectations and more. High expectations. Ensuring access to general education curriculum in the general ed classroom to the maximum extent possible. And I'm going to throw this out, but we're going to talk about this again. Least restrictive environment is this. Oh. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
No, I don't.
Okay, you know this one. Least restrictive environment is this. They have maximum extent education possible. Pretty simple. Okay. What does the inclusive school look like? Administrators guide, support inclusive practices. They guide and support inclusive practices, ensuring a safe and welcoming environment. You all have taken classroom management. You all have now set up your classroom. How do you welcome kids in your class and how you treat them with respect? You do all these things. Right? Teachers believe they're accountable for all students. Accountable for all students. Not just the ones that they're good or they're bad. Remember, special ed teachers can do the same thing. I feel only responsible for the special ed kids. That's not true.
Yeah. Kind of like,
That's right. That's exactly right. It's not true. If you're a special ed teacher, you're in that building for all the kids. You just happen to have kids in IEPs and are required by law to meet their needs, right? So, collaborative structures in place enable staff responsive to changes. Students with disabilities are educated alongside their typical peers. Remember, here's the word I'm using again right there. Students are recognized and celebrated with unique talents. What's that mean?
their primary language. So if they're fluent in Spanish, like the first person was Spanish.
No,
So Dr. Martin was talking about how to put in she gave the example.
yeah, you gave an example.
You gave the example earlier.
Oh, talking about
For a person.
students with disabilities.
Instead of
Or
disabled students.
disabled students, a student with disability.
Absolutely. You talk about their unique talents and their strengths as opposed to what they can do as opposed to what they cannot do. Okay? That's the big thing in special ed, is focusing on what they can do, not what they can't do. I know I can't run a mile. You don't need to tell me. Does that make sense? I mean,
But we know you can walk.
I can walk a mile. I've done that.
Focusing on what
I'm usually like, you keep telling me you cannot run a mile. I know. Why do you keep telling me? Don't you think a kid with a learning disability, you cannot read on grade level?
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. I know. Why are you telling me
I
that?
can't do it.
Man, I can't. And that's called, man, I'm just going all these terms and acronyms. You're never going to remember all
Is it
this.
really something?
Learned helplessness. Okay? I'm not gonna- Students are actively engaged. Classes consist of diverse learners. Teachers value each learning style, unique learning styles, and meet those individuals' needs. This is differentiation, right? Multiple methods of student expression and assessments exist. Process, product, and content. So there is research out there saying that inclusion works, even though it's not the law. We know it's not the law, but it does work. So inclusive practices are a good thing. But for us to only focus on inclusion is not a good thing. So what's the argument people have about inclusion? What's the argument about inclusion?
Disruptive to other students.
How can my kid learn when that kid is taking so much time from the teacher? That's a big argument. That's what people have. I'm paying my taxes for my kid to be in that classroom. You know, it's not all about your kid.
Well, the that kid learns stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learning something from
And their parents are paying taxes too.
That's exactly right. You're paying taxes just like everybody else.
Not the only one.
So we got to keep in mind, as special educators, we're going to deal with these different types of arguments as we come along with special education. All right. I have thrown so much stuff at you. Let's watch a video. This is, I mean, I think it's a good video. You just kind of have to listen. So we'll try to. I can't get it bigger. Is that too loud?
No.
No, it's the new video.
Yes. I can't get this bigger. I can't. Yes.
Technology.
Today we're on the beautiful campus of Clemson University, where much research in the field of special education is being done every day. Today, I will be moderating our discussion on inclusion. My name is Joyce Pickett. My experience has been in a clinical day program, working with students with severe emotional disabilities at the high school level. We have Mitzi Tannery. Mitzi.
My name is Mitzi Tannery. I've been teaching for 5 years. I was students with moderate disabilities, and I do all the elementary grades.
Hi, my name is Amy Snyder, and I've been teaching for 13 years, all of them with children with special needs, and I'm currently teaching children with mild to moderate intellectual disabilities in grades from 2 through 5.
Today, our topic is inclusion. It's an extremely controversial one in our schools. The very definition of inclusion varies greatly from state to state, from school district to school district. So before we begin, let's try to define inclusion.
Well, of course, the push for inclusion is increasing thanks to federal legislation that's been passed in 2004, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, or as known as IDEA, mandates that all students, regardless of their disabilities, should be educated in the least restrictive environment, as deemed appropriate, of course, by their IEP team. What this means is that students should be included in the schools and educated with non-disabled peers to the greatest extent appropriate. We'll discuss that later. But in practice, that means that Gen Ed classroom teachers, in cooperation with special education teachers, should provide accommodations and modifications to allow those students with special needs, as well as all students, to access the curriculum to the best of their abilities. Good academic progress.
Fully agree. And we also need to, in addition to that, we need to have that continuum of services. We need to have flexibility. We need to look at the student as a whole body, and not just bits and pieces. We need to look at the whole child and flexibility, flexibility, flexibility.
I totally agree, Mitzi. My experience for some students, the least restrictive environment has actually been in a more restrictive setting than the general education classroom, such as a classroom specifically designed to address the students' individual special needs. I find that this tends to occur more frequently with students of severe emotional disabilities.
I agree. And isn't it a good thing that there's a team of professionals that make these decisions about where the most appropriate place is for children? That is a huge decision. I'm so glad parents are also included.
Yes. Now that we have defined inclusion as we see it, what benefits have you observed?
Well, I'm going to be speaking today with a background as a resource teacher who has successfully gone into the Gen Ed classroom to do an inclusion program. And one of the main benefits for children who typically get a more restrictive classroom because of their abilities is that they get access to that curriculum that's on the Gen Ed classroom level, which ultimately they are accountable for knowing thanks to our state assessments. As a teacher in a classroom just for children with special needs, it's extremely hard to cover science and social studies across 3 and 4 different grade levels, and to do it with any depth that has any meaning for the students. Something that I can offer to Gen Ed teachers is that with my background, I have more access and knowledge about the research-based teaching methods, which of course No Child Left Behind pushed to the forefront of education. One of my absolute favorite websites is teachingld.org because they issue current practice alerts with recommendations that you could go for it because things are research-based, or maybe used with caution because the research isn't there yet, but they are promising practices. And that gives you a quick way to look and make sure that you are teaching the most effective way that you can be. And some things that I can bring into the classroom that the Gen Ed teachers may not be aware of are strategies like graphic organizers, or reading comprehension instruction, or especially the direct instruction techniques that special education is so well known for getting results. Of course, in addition to the academics, I'm also a written paper resource for teachers. We have all kinds of strategies to increase motivation, to help modify behavior, even for the children you and I have experience with. The more in-depth functional behavior assessment allows us not only to address the behavior occurring, but also all the circumstances leading up to it. Of course, with the goal of preventing the behavior or teaching appropriate alternate behaviors to those students. And I know that all of the collaboration is just the key to everything that teachers need to talk.
For students on a more moderate disability level, those students, in addition to those with a moderate disability, still need to be included with their general peers. However, we have to remember that the law says as appropriate, not just as possible. So appropriate may not mean full academic cases. That's what I see with my students. Instead, they need.
I wrote 4 things up on the board that are associated with what we're discussing. But also, I want you to think about the classes in this program, access to the curriculum. You're going to be getting classes that teach you how to provide access to your uniform in this class. Research-based methods, you're getting a methods class in this program. Behavior and motivation, prevention, you're taking that right now along with Dr. Martin. Collaboration, there's a class you'll be taking about collaboration. So notice there's things that are associated with this. The state of Kansas wants to see if you're taking, but they're associated with these things here. So research-based method, well, okay, access to the curriculum, what does that mean? And that's Gen Ed curriculum.
How to modify it?
Provide modifications, accommodations, scaffolding, differentiation to get that student access to what everybody else is learning, typically developing peers are getting. Okay. Research-based methods, what's that mean?
Methods of backed by research.
So, what does it mean to be backed by research?
Lots of data.
Collected data. What do they do with that data?
It's all scientific method. They observe it, they test it again.
That's exactly right. But once they get all their data and it's written up, what do they do with it?
Publish it.
Publish it. There you go. So that's where you get Council of Exceptional Children. They've got this. They got 2 magazines they put out. One for like journal articles, the other one for research. And you'll see all the stats stuff. And you'll eventually be taking a stats class here too, which is called Inquiry, Data Collection, and Research.
Not like the stats.
No, it's more of an action research stats class. And I want to say that I'm teaching that class. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know. It's a long way away. So
Yeah, don't make us worry yet.
I don't want to make you worry. Yeah. And the collaboration part also. This is big in special education right here. You know, I took this class and I had to videotape myself collaborating with parents. And the parent was another fellow student, but the student role played with me. So the video, and then I had to take that and kind of break it down. You may be doing that in your classes, I don't know, with collaboration. I'm not just teaching that yet, so we'll figure it out. So, all right. 3 things I want you to think about right here. Kind of a recap. Public Call 94-142, what is it? When did it take place? And then, I should have put down, from what also? Where did it stem from? You know, did you hear her say an Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from 2004. 1997, they didn't have the I in it, but we don't really put the I in it either. So, our purpose
Really
is-
would make sense. Idea.
I know. So IDEA 2004, what is it? And I'm giving you the answer. So what's the other answer to this? Another IDEA time frame? Said the answer out loud. 97. All right, what is it? What does IDEA do? And then disproportion in special education, what is it? Take a couple minutes to think about that. Write it down if you want, and we'll talk about it. This is a recap of what we've been talking about. Okay. Kristen, what is Public Law 94-142?
Yeah.
I did that on purpose, so just. Okay, when was it enacted? 1975, good. Anybody want to help her?
Act that enabled that handicapped and special education kids should.
Receive full of ground horses.
Yes.
Supported
Yeah.
education.
Yes, that we include these
It's not
people
separate.
Yeah.
Separate.
That's right. So it's called the Education of All Handicapped Children Act.
EDA. I think I saw
Yeah,
EHA.
yeah. EHA. So Public Law 94-142, EHA, 1975. Yeah, kind of stemmed from Brownsville Board of Education. IDEA, Rachel. Yes, it did.
Individuals with Disability Education Act,
Yes.
and basically it kind of it gave everybody the right to education.
Very good. Okay. So 2004, 1997. Is it supposed to be reauthorized again?
Maybe. Maybe it would be 70. Well, it would have been 2012.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to come up in 2012, 13. So, little bonus. How many key principles are there with IDEA?
5, 6.
Six. You're so close. We'll talk about the key principles next week when we come around. So, who's the one that helped draft who are the people that helped draft IDEA? KU.
2 people that you sometimes, a husband and wife.
That's correct.
Yes,
Rudd and Turnbull. Matter of fact, I used their textbook in my undergrad class. They wrote the textbook that
Huh.
I used. You may still have it.
What was it?
It's called Exceptional Lives.
Maybe? Maybe I sold that one to someone else.
Probably.
Was it sequence 1? Probably sold that to another person behind.
Disproportionate special ed. Micah.
That's when, what is it? It's when people of special education, or they may qualify for special education based on their grades.
What do you call it? They're called it's a word. I'm like stereotype.
Yeah, you stereotype. So I mean, this is the main thing we talked about tonight. We talked. I threw a bunch of crap.
Yeah, you did.
All right, so I'm gonna let you spend the next 20 minutes working on your assignments. Okay. So you can feel free to stay in here, or go to your house, or go to the computers downstairs. So however you want to do it. So I'll be here till 9 if you want to do it. So don't forget, for me, you have that case review.
Yes.
So you choose either one of those cases.
And writing a paper based off of the rubric. Right?
Yeah, you'll use that rubric to write that
Don't
case
like-
review. That's correct.
There's a paper.
And then whatever you're doing for Dr. Martin.
Yeah, and then there's a color.
If you can do one.
Yeah, just choose one of those.
Well, it says review votes. That's why I was making sure.
Just choose one of those.
You printed all that off.
The
Yeah.
case review and the reading for me. Case review and reading for me, and then reading and paper for Dr. Martin.
And then next week you have questions about what we will be reading for the next chapters, or what we read. Color.
That's all they have to do for me next week.
Got it. Am I reading chapter 1 and 2?
Yes.
See, Senora.
This and that class.
I gave a model for the kids today what they had to do for a web